Here's the good news. We've just celebrated the safest 10 years in commercial aviation history, and that is good news. But remember, the absence of an accident should never presume the presence of safety. And in that light, a number of veteran pilots and accident investigators tell us there are still a number of airports out there that are operating at the margins of safety. Mile for mile, flying is still the safest way to travel. The National Transportation Safety Board says there were only 17 fatal commercial airplane accidents between 2000 and 2011. That's remarkably low. Between 0.0001 and 0.0004 per 1 million passenger miles flown. Amazing. And in a majority of cases, the probable cause of the crash was pilot error. But a major contributing cause in many of the accidents was the airports themselves, where takeoffs and landings can prove to be much more challenging due to things like short runways, close proximity to homes and other buildings, and restrictive protocols that limit engine noise, turns, and other things that could hinder a precise takeoff or seamless landing. Thomas Anthony is an aviation accident expert and director of the USC Aviation Safety and Security Program.
An airport is challenging often because of reasons of geography, because of the surrounding mountains, the shortness of the runway, and the surrounding terrain. Altitude also figures into it because the higher in altitude, the thinner the air. Additionally, the navigational aids and the infrastructure that is available to the pilot operating in or out of that airport may or may not be available.
Most experienced pilots will tell you that there's no such thing as a truly dangerous commercial airport. And the reason for that is because no commercial airline would be able to get the insurance coverage required to fly to those airports if they were truly dangerous. So which airports really are the most challenging? California has two candidates, Burbank and San Diego. Both airports are favorites for flyers because they are easy to get to and relatively uncrowded. Let's start with San Diego, where the approach is extremely close to the downtown area. It has mountains to the north and east, Mexican airspace to the south, and tailwinds blowing in from the west. When combined, these factors can lead to forced nose-to-nose takeoffs and landings. Not a good thing. And the approach to San Diego features the steepest descent angle in the United States, right over downtown. In fact, if you're sitting on the left side of the plane, don't be surprised to be able to look into the windows of downtown hotels and see what some people may be doing in their rooms. Burbank has some of the same problems. Very short runways and no margin for error on takeoffs. There are actually schools near the sides of the runways, and the air traffic can be intense. The outer marker for one of Burbank's runways is actually located smack in the middle of the Van Nuys Airport, one of the busiest general aviation airports in the world. So what does this mean? Pilots who are on approach to Burbank are always looking for traffic, very little of which is under air traffic control. And because of short runways, if you'll land too long at Burbank, you can end up on the street. Southwest Airlines Flight 1455 did just that in 2000 and ended up at a gas station. No one was killed, but the plane was a total loss. Then there's the airport in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where both near misses and crashes have been reported, including one in 2007 where a plane overran the runway, killing 186 people, passengers and crew. Like San Diego, the runways are way too close to private homes and buildings. And why? Because the airport is old. It was built in 1936, long before all the urban growth and development that later surrounded it. And let's talk about Midway Airport in Chicago. The runways there are about 2,000 feet shorter than standard commercial airports, causing many pilots to nearly overshoot the runways. And in 2005, a Southwest Boeing 737 did overrun the runway. It went through the airport fence in the middle of a major highway and killed a 6-year-old boy who was riding in a nearby car. A dozen other people were also injured. That airport, along with more than 70 others in the U.S., has since installed something called EMAS. That stands for Engineered Materials Arrestor System. It's basically huge concrete blocks that sit at the end of the runway to prevent planes from going past it. How about this? You know there's a problem with an airport when a beach has signs warning sunbathers not to lie too close to the runway. The landings at the airport in St. Bart's are, to be polite, heart-stopping. It's a steep descent over a mountain onto a 2,100-foot runway and ends directly at a beach. And here's another particularly challenging airport. It's in Aspen, Colorado. Yes, it's got short runways, snow for much of the year, and an extremely steep descent from a high altitude because of the Rocky Mountains. And if you think that's a wild ride, check out the landing on the island of St. Martin. They fly some pretty big planes here, up to 747s. But the only way the planes can land is if they come in very low over the beach and clear a fence by about 20 feet. It's such a wild landing that it's become a spectator sport for both visitors and windsurfers alike, who come there to be literally blown away. And yes, tourists can actually buy photos of these white-knuckle landings. Talk about an unanticipated souvenir.